So, rather unfortunately, there was this viral story of a young black man stabbing a young white man in the heart over what, as far as I understand it, was a dispute over the young black man sitting in a tent area he was not supposed to be sitting in during a track meet. And then I think a group, these twin brothers, one of whom is the victim, and I think maybe a couple of other kids came by and asked the young black man to move. He refused to do so, and they got into an altercation, to my recollection of what I remember from the affidavit I read. And the ending result is the black kid pulls out a knife and he stabs the white kid in the chest, and he dies pretty soon after. The young black man, or the young black teen, I guess, man, whatever, decides to turn himself in, admits to the crime and claims it was self-defense, which there's probably a wee bit of truth to that, but probably only so far as he was aggressed on, which we'll get into in a moment. So the problem of this story, or the thing that concerns me, is not simply the fact that this murder occurred, or at the very least this killing occurred, because murder is the unjustifiable killing of another person, and if it is the case that this was an act of self-defense, it would be by definition not murder. Perhaps we could then call it manslaughter, but either way it goes, the death of this young man, or this story, is being used as a example, a reflection of how nigs are gonna nig. Twitter is quite interesting. It has been overrun, even just on normal meme areas, just if you're just scrolling to find memes at this point, of a lot of, to just be frank, racist people against black people, particularly in many areas of Twitter. And they use this story as an example of how black people are violent, and how they should leave their country and go back to Africa. It's a peculiar type of racism that always befuddles me, the go back to Africa thing. It's almost, the ignorance is so remarkable to me, but we're not really here to discuss that entirely in today's video. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because what concerns me the most is how much of a lesson this could be used for young men in general. Young men in understanding the responsibility that comes with power. Most people don't consider the ability to carry a weapon as powerful, or as a form of power that must be wielded correctly. People are very quick to justify themselves. As such, the young black kid decides that this was a case of self-defense and that he should have used lethal force in defending himself. Was it justified? Again, that's for a court case and lawyers and whatnot to decide. But to be honest with you, from my personal opinion, I would say, yeah, probably not. Probably not. To be quite honest with you, if you want my honest opinion, the entire dispute had to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. But unfortunately, we find ourselves having videos like this.
This kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my
So you go, this dude's stabbing somebody over a seat. So whenever I said he stabbed him over some bullshit, like I didn't even understand, like really. So he's stabbing him over.
It was really senseless. Really, I don't know why a person would do that to someone just over that, up and do that.
I tell you why. It's because there's something wrong with him. It's not the first time that this has happened. I don't like getting into the race politics of stuff because I feel like down the road of the race politics is also gender politics, and I disagree with the conclusion of those gender politics. I disagree with the idea that men should be like considered dangerous proactively because men statistically commit more crime. What I do think is that we need to be a lot more honest whenever you see people that are violent with low impulse control. These people are not fit for society. I think that anybody who pops off over a seating dispute and kills somebody over a seating dispute, he should have never been in a situation to have let this happen in the first place. And I think a lot of these people, they exhibit antisocial behavior, violent behavior for many, many years. Nothing is done about it. And then eventually it goes over the line And then we're going to have to pay a bunch of fucking money to keep this piece of shit in jail.
I'm going to use Aspen Gold here and his comment section to show you how this spills off on the YouTube as well. Again, we take this case, and instead of looking at the young man as an individual, we have to use him as an example to reflect all niggas. And it's absurd. Why is it absurd? Because, well, I've made it to about 29 years on this earth, and I have yet to stab anyone with a knife. Not for lack of possession of one. In fact, if you give me a moment, this is actually a knife given to me by one of my old best good friends very many years ago. I'll have you know that he was a white person. And I've kept this knife as a memento to the friendship he and I had. Or have. I mean, I haven't talked to him in a while, not for lack of ability, just, being males and living life. And it's one of the few things anyone's ever given to me, and I've kept this over the last a little over 15 or so years. Interestingly enough, never killed anyone with this knife. Now, is it because I'm one of the good ones? Well, considering that there are millions of black men who haven't stabbed people in the chest, can't say I'm really special in that regard now, can I? Now, again, I think that there is an important lesson here, quite an important lesson to young men in general. Unfortunately, this is probably one of the examples of, and I hesitate to say this, toxic masculinity that feminists and left-leaning people are referring to. And that's part of what makes this story a smidge goofy to me, or at least the utilization that this is a reflection of black people being murderous individuals is a bit cantankerous. Because again, this really shoots out to me as an example of, and I know it's going to make me sound like a feminist, but male posturing. Let me explain. So, I've lived my entire life as a young man, and as you can see, I'm a Negro too. And unfortunately, if there's any racial component, and only ever so slightly, that would be something that would need to be highlighted here, it would be the fact that there is a posturing issue within black culture. Now, to be quite honest with you, this actually extends to men in general, but you see a lot more of this with black people or black men. Well, I guess you can say black people in general. So what exactly is posturing? Posturing is more or less the act of subtle threatening. It's the act of displaying or trying to deter negative actions with a display of strength. Essentially, that's what posturing is. When someone says, if you touch me, I will hurt you, that's posturing, right? If someone is yelling and shouting, being bombastic, puffing up your chest as a euphemism for that, that's posturing. Animals do the same thing, and considering humans are animals, this actually isn't a unique behavior. Cobras posture with their hoods. Rattlesnakes posture with their rattles. A defense mechanism against bears is to make yourself larger than what you appear. That's posturing. It's a deterrent. And the whole entire point of the deterrent is to get the other individual or organism to not engage in combat. Now, the problem with human beings is that humans are not purely instinctual, like at all actually. And humans, because we have health insurance, and because we have legal safeguards and a whole social structure and a whole bunch of other things that are more complex than being out in the woods, and if you get cut, you might just die, we have a lot of pride. Most humans don't take into consideration, truly and earnestly, what combat really is, what engaging in a physical altercation really is. It's an extremely dangerous thing. But due to pride and posturing and the social aspect, that is, people believing you to be a weak male if you don't posture and if you don't display strength, you can find lots of people, including myself when I was a young man, in these situations where we have to display strength. It's supposed to be a deterrent, but ironically, because the other person and all the other social things that come with being a man is influenced by the fact that they don't want to be perceived as weak, posture back. And what happens is you get a lot of escalation. There's actually lots of examples of people, and you'll find this is actually very consistent in human behavior, of people not actually wanting to fight. There was another viral clip on, I say another, this was the only viral clip I saw on Twitter, where this one kid, he must have been high out of his bloody mind, was sitting on the car of this other kid. I call them kids, but maybe they're just only younger than me, and I'm not even that old. So what happens is the white kid, you know what? I'll just play the video. Screw it. Why am I describing this?
I swear I'm finna punch in this glass, bro. Bro, I swear to God, hop out the car, bro. I swear to God, hop out the car, bro. No, fam, hop out the car. Fam, hop out the car. Dude, just hop out the car.
Nigga tell her, hey, hop out the car on Rick.
Hop out the car.
Yo, nigga told hey, hop out the car on
Hop out the car,
Sure.
fam.
Yo.
Hop out the car, buddy. Just unlock the car, hop out the car, bro. You tripping out. Hop out the car, fam. Hop out the car, bro. Hop out the car, bro. Just unlock the door, hop out the car. Yo.
Hey, he tripping, I ain't gonna lie. Knock him out. Ed, knock him out, Ed. Now he finna get out. Back up. Let him get out. All right, back up. Bro, watch out, bro. Knock him out, Ed. Ed, knock him out. No, Gang, knock him out. Gang, knock him out. Ed, knock him out. Ed, on ski, knock him out. Go. Hurry up. No, knock him. He tripping, gang. Knock him out. Man, knock him out. Bro, watching the game on house arrest, I can't be doing all that.
Watch out.
What the fuck? Knock him out, gang. Sweep his ass. Oh, knock him out, Ed. Knock him out. Knock him out, Ed. Man, knock him down. I missed it. Knock him out. Hey, oh no. Knock him out. I missed it, gang. I missed it. Hey, yo, that's it. Hey, that's it. That's it, Ed. You gonna kill him, man.
So you'll actually see there's a moment where before the two fight, the black man is trying to disengage. He's trying to tell him to leave him alone. He actually is not really wanting to fight there, and he probably only sees this as a joke, as they're laughing and sneering the entire time. The context of what was going on there was the white kid was trying to take the car of the black kid, I guess because he was upset that he got woken up and in his high stupor on someone else's car. It was kind of ridiculous. But the point of bringing this up is, again, not only was that used on Twitter, again, as another example of how violent young black men are, it actually kind of shows the opposite. But because people don't think too complexly, they don't recognize that the black man does not want to fight, or he doesn't deem the fight actually something worthy of his time. Most humans work that way. Most humans don't want to fight. Most animals don't want to fight. Why? Because of exactly the story that started this entire video. You can die. People don't have a real understanding of what combat entails, and that honestly, if you can avoid a fight, you should always avoid a fight. As an individual, I practiced martial arts for quite a long time in my life. Practiced with my friends, practiced by myself, and I have a huge respect for just how awful a physical situation can go. There's a lot of young men that don't have that respect. They don't have an understanding of power and responsibility when you can hurt people. Let's analyze our young black men for a moment. Because there's one thing, again, that might be critical, and that some black people do grow up in environments that are very cutthroat and merciless, which is to say that sometimes you are going to have to posture and engage in physical violence with people you really don't want to engage in. It's possible the young black man was in an environment as such, but I don't know for certain. I just know that there are ways to obtain a mentality like that, which honestly, it really isn't even about being black. It's about your environment, because white people that grow up in that same environment behave the same exact way. Case in point, the video I showed you guys. The point that I'm making is that a lot of black teens, or people in general, don't respect the power of life and death in a weapon. They know that it gives them control. They know it gives them power, but they don't combine that with mercy. And people don't get that mercy can only truly be granted when you have power. You know, because the thing is about mercy or yielding, a lot of people don't understand this because of how external people view social situations versus how internal the knowledge and true confidence in hand-to-hand combat and in weapon carrying is. Which is to say that the pride of the human being, typically the male, gets clouded in the social aspects of not appearing weak, because people obviously can't read your mind. People also don't know the degree of which you've studied martial arts or hand-to-hand combat. And people don't know if you're carrying a knife. Only you know this. And if you choose to yield and forgive and show mercy for what you can do, people see someone, or they perceive someone that is weak, someone that does not have a willingness to fight. But of course, I've oftentimes always said in my videos over the years about confidence is that confidence exists for you. It doesn't exist for other people. And honestly, if you are able to yield and show mercy, then you get exactly what you wanted from posturing anyway. And that is a disengagement from the fight. You get that. Again, sometimes showing mercy is exactly what you need in order to avoid situations. But I understand that most males are afraid of being seen as weak because it may invite other people to come and try to hurt you even more. This might be the only real racial aspect you can add, and even then that would be more cultural than racial, because again, I've seen white people display the same type of behavior, which is to say that if they display weakness in front of a group of males, that may invite further bullying. It may invite further altercations to occur. And as such, the posturing is all about trying to dissuade that constant beratement, or dare I would just say, being bullied. And I can understand, being a male and growing up with all these different pressures, how these two young men could find themselves in this particular situation. And it's part of the reason, if I say the entire reason, why I kind of wanted to make this video to begin with. But this is a little addendum piece, so the editing might be a little goofy here as I find a place to put this, but the other part of the video was taken in one take, whatever, continue. Because otherwise, if you can't actualize how you actually feel, then you only really have the only choice of just capitulating to what other people want. But when you do have power, when you do have control, when you can in someone's life, that's when mercy becomes extremely important. And to be quite honest with you, this entire situation between the young black man and the white kid that got stabbed could have been avoided, honestly, on both sides, without any escalation or posturing. On the one hand, the young black man with the knife had zero respect for the power that is a knife. You can only really do two things with a knife. Deter, which is to say brandish it and tell people to leave you alone, or two, stab people. That's it. It's not much you can do. And with the power to kill someone right in your hands, people, this might sound dramatic, but the reality of the situation is you have a lot of control in that situation. Far more control and power than the white kid that was also posturing. Which, if we go over to him, we can say this. Honestly, even if he is completely in the right to tell the black kid to leave his tent, which I imagine he was. I don't really know the full context, so I'll have to wait for more details there. Even if he was totally right, posturing and engaging and trying to get him to leave without any authority and without the proper power, which is to say self-defense skills, knife defense skills, or a gun, any protection himself, was in a very dangerous spot. Of course, one wouldn't predict that an altercation as such could end in this manner, but to be quite honest with you, when you study and practice self-defense in martial arts, again, with that power, with that understanding of self-defense, you'll find yourself in positions like this where you realize you don't need to fight. You shouldn't need to fight. Honestly, this whole thing could have been avoided if the white kids just would have went to go get a teacher, came back, and the teacher, with more authority, more power, or the security guard, told him to leave. To be quite honest with you, and this is even sadder still, this whole situation could have probably even been avoided with just kindness, which I know sounds pansy, but allow me to regale you tales of my life. I remember growing up, I was bullied. I got physically beat up by two kids in particular who will be the subjects of this story. I'll reveal their race at the end. And so when we got into high school, this was a summer after I practiced Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. I remember there's this Bruce Lee's fighting method video on YouTube I watched religiously. I think I watched that thing like maybe 10 times back to back. Practiced constantly. Lots of exercising, lots of isometric exercises in particular. And so relatively, I was actually a lot stronger than most of the kids my age. I came to realize over the course of a couple of years with like different arm wrestling and playing lacrosse and whatnot. And so in my mind, I always had a smoking gun. I always had power in my mind. I was very confident in my abilities in hand-to-hand combat. And the good news is about life is I never actually had to fight anyone. I had the power, but I also had the mercy. But with the power also gave me the confidence to do something particular. And that is, I had a love interest. I had a friend who, she trapped me in the friend zone. But I really loved her. I loved her a lot. It was kind of in that relationship where I came to truly really understand what it meant to love another person. And this is important because the whole scenario is goofy and silly, which is important actually. But she rode the same bus as me, and the neighborhood she lived in had a traffic light that for some reason would be stuck on the red light for like 15 minutes when we were trying to exit it. So we'd pick her up, and she was the only kid that was usually there. So we would go through all of this to just get her, and then we'd be stuck at the traffic light for 15 minutes. So a couple of times, she just didn't show up. Why? Because she got a ride from her friend's mom, right? So she wouldn't show up. But she would obviously ride the bus in the afternoon. And as such, a couple of kids would be upset with her. They called her different names, called her all different, made fun of her, did all of this stuff. They were so upset with her because essentially she would waste our time because she wouldn't show up in the morning. We had to just sit there for nothing. Now, there's an obvious technicality that our bus driver could not just abandon that bus stop just because she wasn't there sometimes, because sometimes a new kid would show up, and that actually did happen. So it just, yeah. Point is, they would make fun of her. Now, of course, because I loved her, I hated that shit. So what I decided to do was I would just ask two of the main kids that were making fun of her, the same two kids who used to beat me up when I was younger, if they would leave her alone. I remember I was in the lunch line, and the kid was right next to me. And I was fully prepared at that moment to engage in combat with him. Why? Because in the past, that's what used to happen. We're older now. I'm stronger now. And so I say, hey man, could you leave my friend alone? And what happens next shocked me. He said, okay. Just like that. Didn't mess with her again. So I go to the next one. think maybe it was later that day, maybe the next day or so. We're walking home, and I ask him again, the second of the two kids. I ask him and I say, "Hey man, could you stop making fun of my friend?" And he said, "Okay." Just like that. He stopped. Didn't need to fight. Had the power to fight. Even the willingness to fight. Because I was filled with a lot of rage as a young man. But I didn't need to fight. With simple diplomacy and just asking, the entire situation gone. And I imagine to this day she has no idea I even did that. I never told her. I never really had a reason to tell her. But the point of that lesson was to show you guys that these two black kids could answer to diplomacy, despite the fact that they grew up as fucking assholes. They were dickheads. But I didn't need to fight. Had the power to fight. Didn't need to fight. Having the power to fight gave me the confidence to even approach the situation, which is important. But mercy, understanding that with great power, there must also come great responsibility, helped me avoid it altogether. The point that I would want a lot of young men, and this video is more directed to young men unfortunately, is that it is important to have the strength to engage. And even the willingness sometimes to fight. On the one hand, we saw that with the white kid. But it's also important to operate with mercy, with patience. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And while it might seem dramatic to say that you should be patient and wise when engaging with people because they could pull out a knife, that is what happened. And it only needs to happen once for your life to end. That is the seriousness of situations like this in regards to self-defense and protecting yourself. On the other hand, the black kid who stabbed him probably also never needed that knife. And even if he did need that knife to engage with gangsters in a different environment, he didn't need it in this environment. This video was not a defense of him, by the way. Hopefully you guys understand that what he did was wrong. And I'm articulating why it's wrong. The force multiplier of a knife is too much power. And there was too little respect in what you could do with it. You have to have a willingness to engage. But you also have to temper it with the mercy to not engage. As in, you don't need to kill someone, especially over what is the silliest and stupidest, I'm going to be honest with you, dispute I think I may have ever seen. Because this whole thing could have been avoided if the black kid just left. Game, set, match. And this whole thing could have been avoided if the white kid just went to a teacher and told him, "Hey, he's here where he's not supposed to be. Can you tell him to leave?" But because we have two kids, two males posturing, two males having to prove that one has strength over the other, we get this whole kerfluffle of just absolute senseless violence, a fight that just never needed to occur. It is the case that one of the twins, the one that was killed, did engage with the black kid. But engaging, as in physically grabbing something or, attacking him in one way or another, does not, by any stretch of the imagination, from my point of view, justify needing to pull out a knife to stab him. It's just... Now, you could argue that, and I would imagine if he gets a lawyer, he would argue as such, that because it was a group of white people or a group of young white kids coming to him, there were multiple people there, that is why he felt that he was in a much more threatened state. It was more elevated there because all of them could have just jumped on him at that point in time. I imagine that's probably his legal defense, but I could be wrong, I don't know. The fact remains that he did not respect the power of life and death that was in a knife. And a lot of black kids in general don't understand the power of life and death and just the gun in general. And a lot of people don't understand that when you learn self-defense and you learn how to fight, you also learn you really don't need to. you learn just how dangerous combat is and just how quickly you can end up dead. Honestly, to be quite honest with you, there's plenty of situations where you could just turn around and just get stabbed in the back, and all of your 15 years of any martial arts training meant nothing because you just got snuck, right? That could happen too. Combat is complex, it's dangerous, and to be quite honest with you, is something that you should probably avoid unless you absolutely have to engage. Lots of people, young men in particular, are very gung-ho on displaying strength. And that display of strength is a part of the toxic masculinity that feminists are referring to. As such, they're saying that males will find themselves in these violent situations because they can't bend the knee or they can't show mercy. And a lot of people don't understand that a show of mercy, ironically, is not weakness. It can only be done with strength. To end the video, I'll say this. I think that there is something very important to be learned here, and the internet age we have today breaks my heart because we've really failed so many people when we take stories like these and we just boil it down to just race, and we just boil it down to black kid, white kid, and we just boil it down to just, whatever sensationalism we can get to. But there is wisdom here. Wisdom for young men, wisdom for young black men, wisdom for young white kids, young white men, wisdom for men in general, young boys in general. And that is, a lot of the time, you don't have to fight. You don't have to posture. You don't have to engage. Sometimes mercy, diplomacy, is the path you need to get to a better state. I would imagine if you asked a young white kid, if you could do this over again, would you just go get a teacher? I'm sure he would, but he can't because he's dead. Because that's how silly and senseless these situations can occur. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't occur here because black kids are inherently more violent in their violent rap culture. White kids in trailer parks end up in the same situation. And guess what? Black kids in the hood end up in the same situation. Fun fact, most people who die, most people who get killed are killed by members of the same race. Go figure, right? It's almost like a lot of these crimes happen due to proximity, not skin color or genetic encoding. The point that I'm making is that I think that there is something to be taken here from this pretty sad story. And that pretty sad story thing that should be, or the wisdom that should be taken from this, is you don't need to engage in senseless violence as a young man. You need to temper yourself and understand the strength that is found in mercy. And hopefully, and I know this video probably isn't going to do the rounds, but my hope is at least it touched the hearts of some people that, again, you do need to learn to protect yourself. You do need to have the power to fight, but you also have to have the wisdom to know you don't need to either. And that's the only way you can truly exhibit mercy. So, with that being said, man, I sort of hope you guys got something out of today's video. It's a lot longer than I actually originally intended it to be, but I really hope you guys sat through it and you guys really get the meat of it. Because, again, I'm not encouraging, just as one final wrap up, that you never study, practice martial arts, or carry weapons. Those are extremely important tools in protecting yourself and sometimes in protecting other people, which is a concept that kind of goes beyond the scope of this video in particular. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is what I've always said, and that is, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Having a knife is great power. You can kill someone. You can end their entire existence on Earth. And there has to be a reverence and seriousness when holding any type of power. That could even include just your fists being conditioned and really strong, like even strong enough to break bricks, because some people are actually that strong. That's another form of power. I'm not encouraging anyone to be a pansy, or to be a simp, or to be a bloody weakling. I'm encouraging the opposite. What I'm saying is, in order to truly be merciful, you must have power. But with that power comes responsibility and a reverence and wisdom required of which to use that strength or not use that strength. And that is the lesson I want you guys to take out of this video. Not race relations be bad, because I'll be really honest with you, I'm going to say it's only half of a fabrication on Twitter, but that goes beyond the scope of this video, truly. So, one more time, with that being said, I certainly hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, I don't know, man, go and click the like button. And shoot, go and click the subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon.